Welcome. I'm Kevin Miller. This is a podcast for your personal evolution. In this episode, solution-focused brief therapy, asking the right questions and knowing your core values. Surveys right now show there are more people in therapy than ever. And on one hand, I feel there's benefit in talking with someone as opposed to not. On the other hand, I'm concerned whether all the therapy is paying off. Statistically, our mental health continues to decline. So when I heard about SFBT therapy, I intrigued myself. So again, it's solution-focused brief therapy, and it's defined as a goal-oriented short-term approach that focuses on identifying a client's strengths and resources to find solutions to their problems, rather than dwelling on the problems themselves. My guest today is one of the foremost experts on solution-focused brief therapy, Elliott Connie. He's a respected author, top psychotherapist, and a thought leader in solution-focused brief therapy. And he takes a fresh approach to the concept, and he's got a book called Change Your Questions, Change Your Future, Overcome Challenges, and Create a New Vision for Your Life using the principles of SFBT. In the book, Elliott challenges us to rethink our questions and the thinking behind them. And I just resonate with the concepts a lot. The idea is using powerful, forward-focused questions forward as opposed to backwards and in the past, but questions that are designed to help you shift your mindset and create meaningful change. And the highlights for me were really thinking about how much more powerful it is for me when I'm thinking for myself and thinking of questions and answering them rather than just being told something. When we're told something by someone else, we can often push back against it, or it just doesn't resonate as deeply. When we consider and come up with an answer to a question ourselves, we're listening. It's us talking here. We also got deep into the power of knowing and living in accordance with core values, and not the big picture core values, as Elliott points out, that we tend to think of in regards to beliefs and morality and things like that. But where he finds the most power is in the day-to-day values that actually support who we are and who we want to be, moment by moment. Elliott's book, again, Change Your Questions, Change Your Future. It's available now. You can connect with him and SFBT at ElliottConnie.com and go to any social media, type in Elliott. It's with two T's at the end, ELLIOTT Connie or Elliott Connie, and you'll find him anywhere. All right. Well, coming up next is my discussion with Elliott and these concepts around, again, it's solution-focused brief therapy. And there's concepts that you can employ right here, right now. Let's evolve ourselves. Elliott, in my own beginning understanding of solution-focused brief therapy, and reading your book and going through your stories and your personal stories and whatnot, what I resonated with was it felt like a practice that I have, from a layman's aspect, embraced. And it's just trying to get my mind reframed. It's trying to get my mind on a paradigm shift away from kind of seeing the forest instead of, the tree. And it feels like you guys do that with this modality with great success. And so I just honor what you're doing and thank you. I'm eager to learn more.
Thank you, man. I think people say that kind of stuff to me all of the time. And I think it's always a wonderful thing for me to hear, right? Because I think the human condition is a solution-focused condition that we complicate by thinking we need to understand the problem in psychotherapy. But we don't do that everywhere else in the human experience. But for some reason in the psychotherapy world, we think we need to do it. And I'm super motivated to help people understand, like, just stick to your human condition as a clinician and things will be better.
Instead of having to completely dissect and understand everything. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Like, if you think about it in this term, let's say I woke up today and I had a desire to have a good day. Like, I just want this to be a good day. I want to smile. Yep. I want to laugh. I want to feel good. And as I go through the day, I get into a fight with my partner, or I have a difficult day at work. There's something about that that makes us like, man, what went wrong with my partner? Or like, what went wrong at work? But when I'm in another human condition, like I want to go running. I want to run a mile today, which is actually true. I want to run a mile later. When I'm running, let's say there's a lot of leaves on the ground, which it's autumn where I live and leaves have fallen. I'm not going to be like, why have all those leaves fallen? I'm just going to focus on my goal was to run a mile today. That goal is not dependent upon whether it's cold outside, whether it's rainy, whether there's a lot of leaves on the ground or whatever. My goal is to run a mile, and I'm going to focus on getting that done. And when we do that, you immediately become more resilient. You immediately become stronger. You immediately become the best version of yourself to get that thing done. And what I think solution-focused brief therapy does is it puts people in that mindset about things like, I want to have a good day today. Because and most people don't wake up with that intention. Most people wake up and in their brains, I want to have a good day. And if you ask them to define a good day, they define a good day as the absence of bad things. Well, I'll have a good day if I don't get in an argument with my partner, if I don't have a bad day at work, if I don't get stuck in traffic. But you don't define like your fitness journey by like, I'll know I achieved my journey if I don't fall down as I'm running. Or like you just say, like, I know I'll achieve my fitness journey. My goal every day is I want to do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and run a mile. So that's a present-focused way of describing what I want, and it kind of puts your brain in a very, like, get this accomplished mindset that we just don't do typically throughout life. So if we did, your life would immediately become better and more goal-oriented.
I like you calling us to the present. That
Yes.
has been a continual focal point, especially in relational conflict. It feels like we are often going back and talking about this thing that pissed us off back here. And we're talking with the person that we feel is the culprit, whatever. And we spend all the time talking about the past. And yet something happened that you interpreted one way, I interpreted another. And we're going to sit here and spend so much time trying to reconcile that, as opposed to, as my good friend Jake would say, look, what do you need right now?
Right.
This moment.
I think it's true. I would say, I wouldn't say, what do you need right now? I would say, what are you trying to accomplish right now?
Okay.
I would say, what is the outcome I'm looking to achieve right now?
Your aspect of understanding, I resonate with. I feel like as a humanity, we want to figure everything out, understand it, and we want to justify. And I found myself, and Elliott, I don't know why, maybe I don't want to say age, but just I've gotten tired of trying to justify things.
Yeah.
Like the things that work for me. These are 2 hummingbirds here that my kids gave me, and people go, "Oh, so what is hummingbird? What's the meaning?" And I go, well, I have some instances and some things, but ultimately I don't know. I don't. It makes me. I just feel good. I like them. I inspire myself with them. I don't know. I don't have some defined thing, and I'm just going to stick there. If I have to justify it, I don't know. And I'm starting to do more and more of that. I'm going, it just works, or it just doesn't. I feel energy from that. I don't like that energy. I'm just going to roll with that. Am I tracking?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think we spend a lot of our time justifying our positions and justifying our thoughts and actions and behaviors, and all of that is a distraction. My goal today, when I woke up, was to feel good about the work that I was doing, and at some point today, do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and go run a mile. And if someone were to be like, oh, a mile's not long enough, you need to run longer, or someone were to say, oh, I actually read somewhere that riding a bike is actually better than running, so, like, all of that is a distraction. My goal was to simply do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and run a mile. I don't need to justify to you why I'm doing it. I don't need to justify you why that works for me. I'm sure there is research that says riding a bike is better. The reason why I choose to run is because I travel a lot in my job. And running is more portable than a bicycle. So when I'm in Vancouver, Canada, I can just literally go in my suitcase, get out my running shoes, and go run. I can't go in my suitcase and get a bicycle. So I choose to run because it is the most continual habit that I can have with me that comes with me everywhere I go. But I don't have to justify that to anyone as long as I know that that's my truth. And I think people just get distracted from being like the absolute best version of themselves, distracted by other people's opinions, distracted by what people want for them, distracted by all kinds of nonsense. And I think the greatest human state is when you are just focused on the outcome you want to achieve, and that's the only thing that's in front of you.
The outcome. Okay, we're going to jump right back there. It's just funny because this is my second podcast today. The first one was with Nicholas Thompson. His book is called The Running Ground. He's the CEO of The Atlantic, and that his tagline is a father, a son, and the simplest of sports. We literally talked about running because you can do it anywhere, anytime, no matter what. So you're just
Well,
good
that is so
confirmation.
ironic. Just so your listeners can know, I had no idea that you had talked to anybody today about running. So I use that as an example randomly, and it just happens to be in line with something you've already talked about. But it's 100% true. It's 100% true. Running is the most simple form of exercise. And I have people all over the place that are trying to like help me. Like, Elliot, you shouldn't run. It's bad for your knees. It's bad for this. Yeah, it is bad for my knees, but it's not as bad for my knees as inactivity. And because I'm on the road about 60% of the time, I need to do the most simple form of exercise because I can bring that with me.
All right. Your topic here on questions. It's why you're here. I resonated with it as somebody who's participated in a lot of coaching. I'm not a therapist, but a lot of coaching. I have often had some of the best testimonials from people, and I feel like I didn't tell them anything. I didn't teach them anything. I just happened to ask the right questions, and they found the answers themselves. And I sit there going, I'm not sure I was worth the money, but I'll assume I did. If I did that, if I asked the right questions and it helped them, I did. But I didn't impart anything. Is the point. And again, even with therapy, I feel that we're supposed to, you guys as therapists, impart X, Y, Z. And I feel like you're saying, no, just ask the right questions.
Yeah, I think therapists get themselves into problems when they try to make change happen, because that's actually not how change happens. And I think the greatest way to help change to happen is to ask your client a question where it forces them to think in a new way, because then change is inevitable. Like, you can't be the same. Like, if I ask you a question, like, if you feel terrible as a parent, and as parents, we all have days where we feel like we suck at being a parent. And if on that day, Kevin, I met you and you were like, I just feel like I'm not doing a great job as a parent. I'm letting my kids down and I got to be better. And if on that day I said, what were your children thinking of you the day they gifted you with hummingbirds? That question is going to cause you to think differently, because all of a sudden I don't feel like a piece of crap. I don't feel like my daughters don't love me. All of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, they must have been thinking something positively of me on the day they gifted me those hummingbirds. And then if I were to say, like, and every single time your daughters walk into your office and see those hummingbirds, like they see you didn't throw them away, you didn't discard them, you actually value them and you keep them around you. What do you think your children think about how much you care about them, that you value the things they gifted to you? It causes you to think in a different way. Yeah. And I think therapists, instead of trying to like, hey, Kevin, who feels like he's not a good dad, let me give you the 7 tips that all good dads must be doing. Instead of that, I'd rather ask you a question that makes you think. I'd rather ask you a question that causes you to go to a state where you have to challenge your preconceived notion and get back to where you'd like to be.
Okay, on that, and again, I'm not picking on therapist or therapy necessarily, but I actually am. So
I do a lot. So yes,
it's my show, and I can do that. I mean, there is. I have experienced the questions, but the questions, and you talk to this, are often about the problem. Let's dig into the problem. Let's understand the problem. Let's dissect the problem. Kevin, how were you feeling with the problem? And you're not minimizing the problem. You're just not giving that the primary focus. You are, as it's called, solution focused, looking at, okay, what is the solution? Fair?
Yeah. I think the problem, like, one of the things I'm most proud of about my work as a therapist, I've never asked a client How does that make you feel? And I've never said to the client, like, let's unpack that problem. I think problems are irrelevant to focus on. Now, they're relevant to our story and to our journey, but they're not relevant to the process of change. And the sooner therapists realize that, the more effective they become.
Okay. Big view again of studying solution focused brief therapy and through your book and whatnot. It does feel like it not requires, but it is calling me for me to walk forward in the therapy. I am going to, by proxy, I've got to connect with me.
Yes.
I've got to connect with me.
Yes. I love that. Kevin, I don't think anybody that has interviewed me has ever said that quite that way. Yes. The answer is yes. All the way. Yes.
Okay. Tell me more about your response there, because that is a topic I can continue to come to. And this has been my own journey, Elliott, of realizing that I was a doer. I was an achiever. I'm doing all this stuff. I was not connected to me. I was just a tool. And now that I am, so you're experiencing, I've been blowing my world up of connecting with me for the first time. I'm 54 years old. And in the past year plus connecting with me, I have seen my connections with everybody and everything just go through the roof. And I feel like I'm not doing anything other than just being. That's a lot there. Talk about unpacking, but right. I'm just watching it and going, this is bananas.
So I believe most people do not know themselves. And they don't know themselves. I mean, we live in a world. So I'm 49, Kevin. We're close in age. And when I was growing up, there were no cell phones. There wasn't literally 1,500 channels. Like when I was growing up, I'll give you an example. I learned that I really enjoyed sports through boredom. I can remember waking up on a Saturday morning. I had just moved from Chicago to Boston, Massachusetts, or just outside of Boston. And I didn't know anybody. I was in late elementary school, early middle school age. And on a Saturday morning, I wake up and there's nothing on television, which this generation of kids will never know that experience because they can stream Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, 1,000 cable channels. But I grew up in a home where there were 8 channels because all of that stuff just, quite frankly, didn't exist. So there I was in my boredom state on a Saturday, and I look outside the window and there were kids playing. So I walked to the park where the kids were playing and said, "Can I play with you guys?" We played pickup football. I ended up playing football all through college. Why? Because I liked it. I learned that I liked this. In this day and age, people don't sit with themselves enough to learn, what do I like? What do I not like? What gives me energy? What gives me calm? What gives me peace? And people just don't know that. And the most important thing people don't know is, what do I want? And I mean, truly, what's that thing that I really want that should be the North Star of my life? Most people have no idea what that thing is.
Okay, thanks. I'm gonna hone in on some of what you just shared there. Yeah, the boredom issue. I saw some post one time that says, there's so many brilliant painters, brilliant athletes, brilliant this, that we're never going to find out because they're scrolling right now.
Correct.
They're not bored. But your point, thank you, was connecting with selves. One of my favorite quotes is, I'm sure you know it. It's Pascal, and it was something like I'm paraphrasing pretty badly here, but one of man's downfalls is the inability to sit alone with themselves for 15 minutes.
I think that's true.
So, questions. That's at the foundation of your work, your solution-focused brief therapy. And as I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I'm helping myself through your sharing here. Questions. If I am telling you something, you may connect with it. But if I ask you a question and you have to answer, you have to connect with it. There's a higher propensity.
Well,
Yeah.
if not only if I tell you something, not only do I run the risk of you not connecting with it, I actually run a greater risk of you arguing with it.
Yeah.
So, for example, and I'll just stick to
Yeah.
the parenting issue. If I said to you, Kevin, I think you're a good dad, you're going to argue with me, and you're going to say in your head, well, a good dad wouldn't have had an argument with his kids last night, or if I were a good dad, my kids would do their chores, or if I were a good dad, my kids would be more compliant at school, or if I were a good dad, thus and so. Like, human beings are designed to argue when we hear compliments about ourselves. And one of the number one thing I have people tell me is I don't take compliments or praise very well. So when someone says something praising or complimentary, we have a tendency to argue with it. And what a question does is it bypasses that argument. So if I were to say to you, what did your children think of their father the day they realized we should get him a gift? You can't argue. You can't argue with that because they must have been thinking something positive, because we don't give gifts to people we're thinking negative things of. So what a question does is it disarms the human ability to create an argument because people said something kind about them.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to help. Somebody's going to hear that, and I'm not a victim, but they've had somebody in their lives who've kind of heard some of that message. And so they're doing that. We can all give those very, very leading questions where it's almost a trap. And that's not what you're doing here. So differentiate those, that it's a question. It's this kind of question, not this kind of question.
Well,
that makes sense?
Yeah. Like, I think the best way I can explain that, Kevin, is every single question has an insult or a compliment bedded within it.
Okay, there we go.
And embedded within it. And when we do solution-focused brief therapy work, we're intentionally asking the kinds of questions that have a compliment embedded within it.
Love it. I'm taking notes. That's what I was fishing for.
Yeah. Like, I want people to hear my question, think about their answer, and feel good about themselves as they think about or even hear themselves answer it out loud. And if I said to you, hey, Kevin, why did you gain so much weight? You're going to feel bad about yourself answering that question. Well, I let myself go after college, or, I haven't really been taking great care of myself for the past couple of years, whatever. Those answers don't make you feel good about yourself. But if I said to you, obviously I'm being hypothetical here, but if I said to you, hey, Kevin, after realizing you've gained weight, how did you find the motivation to come to the gym to get back into shape? That question has a compliment embedded in it, because I'm saying to you, I respect, acknowledge, and admire that you've gotten motivated to get your fitness journey back on track. But most people are like, well, Kevin, before we talk about that, let's figure out why you gained weight. And like, screw that. That makes me feel bad about myself. Do you know that one of the strategies that fast food restaurants do to find a proper location to put their restaurants is they look for gyms, and they want to put the McDonald's, the Burger King, the whatever, they want to put the restaurant next to or in front of the gym. And the reason why they do that is because when I go to the gym and I start feeling down about myself because I don't look great in the mirror, I tried to run a mile and failed. When I walk out of the gym and I feel bad about myself, I'm going to choose things like McDonald's. Like, that's literally what, like, we feel so bad about ourselves that it's so much easier to make a decision that is congruent to I feel bad about myself. And I'm just like, whoa, what if we just felt better about ourselves? What if when you went to the gym, they had signs everywhere that said, you are enough? What if they had signs that said, even if your workout didn't go great, we're excited to see you tomorrow? What if they said, even if you didn't run that mile, the fact that you took one step on your journey is actually more than you did yesterday, so it's worth congratulations? Then we feel good about ourselves and we make better decisions. For me, When I talk to someone, I want them to feel good about themselves for having talked to me. That's my goal.
I feel better.
I hope you do. I hope everybody listening does. Like,
Goal achieved, man. I'm sitting here, you talking about that. I reached up here and grabbed a little sticky note for those watching the video. It's a little sticky note. I came into my my fancy studio, but came in there, and on the studio equipment was this little sticky note. I love Dad, with little flowers and the sun. My daughter had stopped by to pick up some mail or something. She was probably 23 at the time, and she left that there. I still have it.
And what do you think? What happens in your? How old is your daughter now?
25.
Now, this is a grown woman. Like, she's an adult at 25. When she walks into wherever you're recording this now and sees, my dad kept a sticky note that I wrote years ago. It makes her feel important, valued. It makes her feel honored, relevant. It lets her know she matters to you. Like that stuff, man. To me, that's everything. I don't really care how much money someone makes, or I don't really care how big someone's business is. It doesn't really matter to me how nice your car is or how big your house is. What matters to me a lot is like how many people feel like that around you. And it's those little things. Like, my daughter left me a sticky note. Means absolutely nothing. There's no secret code on this sticky note. There's no treasure map to gold on that sticky note. But you decided, I'm going to keep this because it came from someone really special to me. There is no question that she feels good about those things. And to me, that's what life is all about.
Yeah, man, we may get into it in a second, but the connecting with self, we'll come back to. As I have focused on connecting with myself, the connection with my kids, I'm just watching it. I'm watching it skyrocket. Unbelievable. I want to pull out something though that I helped myself see through what you were talking about, that question. And you said with that, it's either, an insult or a compliment embedded in it.
Yes.
When you give me this questions, I'll call it somewhat of a leading question with a compliment, and I have to answer it. I struggle with the concept of validation. But when you have me answer a question like that, how did that make you feel? What do you think your kids were thinking when they gave you these gifts? I am going to answer it and self-validate, which is my favorite validation.
Which is true.
Yeah.
Which is true.
Yeah.
And more than that, when you spend time with yourself, you realize, which I'm gonna take like self-validation to another level. You realize the validation was never the point. I did not have children to validate me as a man. I had children because, like, I wanted to create a family with this particular person. I raised my children in this particular way because I wanted them to be great. So when I say something like, what do you think your children were thinking the day they bought you these hummingbirds? Not only do you I feel good about myself because I feel good about myself, I also realize it was never about validation anyway. It's only about me and my relationship with these children. That's it. And as long as my relationship with these children is strong and in the way that I want it, that's really all that matters. And to me, that's the point.
Okay. I'm going to jump to, this is kind of the first section of your book, is adopt the stance. And when I read in there about, and you talk about being awe inspired, and awe is a favorite word of mine as well. But in this, as an example, what I heard, what I experienced, you tell me, and adopt the stance is kind of what you're talking about. It is creating a reference point, in essence, a worldview. I mean, we're talking about a core belief. We're talking about the essence of how I am perceiving, myself and everything.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, I'm talking about if you believe the connection towards your children is like a core value that you have, and an opportunity comes towards you that is tempting but violates that core value, right? Like if someone swoops in and says, "Hey, Kevin, I want to offer you a job. I want to pay you millions of dollars a year, but you have to move to Alaska to do that job." then if I really know, like I know myself, moving to Alaska would harm my ability to stay connected to my children. So regardless of the millions of dollars or regardless of the external temptations, I'm going to stick to my core value and make choices that are good for my children. And I'll give you an example. I have a friend, one of my best friends, actually the co-author of the book, Dr. Adam Frower. His wife's name is Becca, and hopefully she doesn't listen to this and kill me for saying this, but I'll tell you a little secret about Becca. His wife's name is Becca, and she tends to be a very anxious person. And to deal with her anxiety, she is an ultimate planner, like a mega planner. She plans everything down to the nth degree, including meals for her family. Adam and his wife, Becca, have 3 kids. And she will write a menu for the month on what she's going to make for those kids. Now, one day, and we are very close. I'm very, very close to Adam and his family. And one day I was visiting Adam. He lives in Atlanta. I live in Texas. And I was visiting Adam, and we were at a mall. And I said to Adam, hey, what if we grab dinner and bring it home? Now, I'm thinking, A, it's a treat to have dinner outside of the home. Mom cooks every meal in the house. So like, what if we surprise your family and we were near a restaurant called PF Chang's. And I said, what if we go to PF Chang's and we buy a bunch of Chinese food and bring it back to the house? And in my head, I'm like, Becca will get the night off. Like she doesn't have to cook. The kids will get a treat. They get to eat out this particular night. Like this will be fun. And Adam said, no, I can't do that. And I said, why not? PF Chang's is right there. I'll treat. I'll buy everything. My treat. And Adam said, Becca will be upset because she has planned to cook dinner tonight. And I'm sure she's like thawing out the meat, or I'm sure she's like in the process of getting ready. If I come home with a bunch of food, she's going to feel like I didn't care about her plan. And that was Adam sticking to his core value. Like it would have been wonderful to walk in the door with a whole bunch of Chinese food. But one of Adam's core values is about making his wife happy and about holding her in a particular way. So when Adam heard his best friend saying, let's go get this food and let's treat everybody, he was like, I can't. As tempting as that is, if I do that, Becca may experience that as me disrespecting her. So I can't do it. And one of the gifts about Adam is Adam lives his life in congruence to his core values. And that means he must know himself well enough to know what his core values are. And a lot of people get into relationship issues. To be very honest, I don't think people have relationship problems because we don't know how to be in relationships and we're broken humans. What happens is I don't know what my core values are, so I accidentally violate them. Like Adam would think, oh, this would be a great idea. Yeah, let's grab that Chinese food. And then we walk in the house with all this food, and Becca's in the middle of making meatloaf or something, and she feels like I just got disrespected. And then Adam, as the husband, has to pay a price for that later. But Adam, being someone who's very aware of what his core values are, and he's very self-aware, he doesn't put himself in those scenarios.
Tell me, I think I'm tracking, and core values. I'm with you. My question is around. I would have, to this point in my life, said I was very clear on my core values. I could have listed them out. They would have sounded good, but I missed some important ones.
Yes.
Maybe I missed an important one, and it was a value in regards to myself. Well, Elliott, it speaks to your own story. So I read about your story. In your story, when you were considering suicide, and I don't think you referenced it as a core value then, but you made a boundary, which I would say core values include boundaries.
True.
You made a
True.
boundary around what you would allow your dad, how you would allow him to engage
True.
with you. And you, in essence, found a new lease on life.
100% true.
Fair? I missed a core value of, I'm actually a person too. And boundaries. I was boundaryless. I thought my value was no limits, no excuses. I'm Superman. I'm God. I fix everything, take care of the family. And I did that until I was bitter and burnt out. I missed a core value. I missed boundaries. How's that play out sometimes with the core values? Because I think a lot of people go, "Oh, I know mine." I'm going, "Do you? Do you know them about yourself?"
No, I love that, man. I think most people know their big picture core values. Thou shalt not steal.
Okay.
Right? Most
Okay.
people know.
Good.
If I said to you, like, "Hey, Kevin, let's go out tonight and steal cars," you'd be like, "No, no, 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 no. I'm not going to do that. That's against the person that I want to be." If I said like, "Hey, Kevin, let's go break into those buildings," like, "No, no, no. That's against who I want to be as a person."
So can I say big picture? I like
Yes.
that. Like moralities, ethics, right, wrong, kind of, we know. So, okay, we're probably clear on that is what you're saying.
Yes.
But you're going to
But what we're unclear about is those daily boundaries that we have to enforce to support who we actually are. Because I'm so much more than a person who doesn't rob banks. I'm also a person who had the daily support. When I set up a core value, which is I'm glad you brought that up. I let people treat me badly up until I was 19 years old. Because my core values was not at that time love of self. So when I had that moment with my dad and I said to him, "You are not allowed to yell at me, hit me, or call me names." In that moment, what I didn't realize at the time, I was 19, I didn't realize that in this moment, love of self matters more than it did prior to this moment. So in order for me to enact those three boundaries to him, I have to do two things that I wasn't thinking about when I was, 19-year-old kid. The two things I had to do was, number one, that leaks, if I'm not going to let him do it, then that meant I'm not going to let anybody else do it either. So all of a sudden, I became someone capable of saying, no one gets to call me names, no one gets to curse at me, and no one gets to insult or hit me. Which means I can now defend myself, which up until that time, I wasn't defending myself. I wasn't someone that would fight back as a person until that moment. The second thing that I became capable of doing was, in order to defend myself, I have to love myself. I have to view myself as worthy of being defended. And in that moment, my life completely transformed, because now one of my core values became, I love me. And what does I love me translate into? I'm not going to drink, because I don't like how I feel when I drink. Now, I was a college kid at the time playing football. You want to talk about alcohol flowing through? like our football teammates had keg parties every 5 minutes. But now that I love myself, it changed how I treated my physical body. Right. And I think it's really, really important to realize, like, we all have these big picture values. I go to church every Sunday. That's a big picture value. We have a big picture value is I want to follow the rules of society. That's a big picture value. But those smaller daily things, which is like, I love my daughter. And as a consequence of loving my daughter, I cherish the things she gives me. Now, sometimes those things might be huge things, like, I love my dad, and for his birthday, I bought him a watch, an expensive watch. But sometimes it might be small things, is I went to his office to pick something up, and I just wrote him a little sticky note. But because one of my core values is this woman matters to me, and my connection to her matters to me, then my daily way of demonstrating that value is I'm holding on to this sticky note.
All right, I'm going to jump to an issue, because I've kind of sequentially went through the book, but this is one that came up, and my paraphrase, Elliott, is you guys focusing, giving attention to, I'm going to call it the why, not only the why, but the why under the why, and maybe the why under that, and the why and the why. And I tend to look at it and go, ask anybody why they're doing something or why they want something, because want is a big issue with me too. What do you want? And they give the why. And I go, okay, we're going to set that aside. And now give me the why. And I thought about, I kept joking about doing a book called The 5 Levels of Why, because it probably takes about 5 whys to get to the real one. But I missed it. I missed it too. And a lot of times, if you'd asked me, nobody asked me the why under the why, and to get down to what is that root core value. Why am I really doing it? I think if I had done that, I would realize that some of them weren't really core values. I was just doing that to deal with my identity issues or
Yes.
whatnot. And so I've let a lot go, and I've gotten a lot more solid on the others. But man, I had to really dig down. And I feel like you guys come to that in the book in this concept with solution focused brief therapy is you're asking the whys under the whys to get us, well, again, connected to self and really clear on what we really want and why, and understanding do we
I was 100%, man. I think, number one, I think most people don't go deep enough into their why, to your point. And number two, most people don't even think about it to where they're just living life on autopilot. Like, why did you take that job? It was, closest to the house. Why did you make these choices? It was just the next thing to do. People like Adam, who I was just referencing, one of his great gifts is he knows his why about every single thing he does. He is probably the most purpose-aware person I've ever met. He knows exactly why he's doing everything he does. And everything he does tracks to a value that he has. And I'll tell you a really stupid story that gets to this, I think. But Adam's wife was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2020. Oh, no, it was in 2019, I think. It's been a few years. In 2019. And someone from their church gave Adam's family a bunch of protein powder to make shakes and to help her keep her body strong as she was going through chemotherapy and radiation and all the things. She is fine now. She went through all of it and she is healthy now, but it was a long journey, and he had these huge tubs of protein shakes. And I would go to his house, again, we're very close, and I'd hang out with him, and every single day he would go up in his kitchen and he would make one of those he would make like a protein shake with the powders that people had given him, and he would drink them, and then he'd say, "Oh, these are so gross." And I was like, then Adam, why are you drinking them? Like, there's no mandate for you to drink that. Like, if it's gross, you can just pour it out and just throw it away. Like, you don't have to drink this. And he said, I don't waste things. And I'm very touched that when my wife got sick, people bought things and brought them to my family. And the best way I can show them that I respect what they did for me and my family is to use them. So Adam drank for months. He drank one of those shakes a day with these powders that he did not enjoy. Now, that sounds like a silly thing, but Adam very rarely, if ever, violates the things that matter to him. And one of the things that matters to him is if someone does something kind for you, you have to show appreciation. The best way to show appreciation is to use it. So Adam used every iota of those powders, even though he didn't like the way they tasted. And I think too often we make choices based upon what feels good instead of, does this fit for who I want to be?
We're back to knowing self, to self connection. And you even talking about that. I like your term. You said he was the most purpose aware.
He is the most purpose aware person I've ever known.
To do that, as I continue to pursue my own awareness, I find that you use the word autopilot. I appreciate the term a lot because that's for me to know me, to connect with me. I'm finding I just have to slow down. It's not been my life, man. My life has been hair on fire, autopilot. How much can you get done? How much can you take care of? And I did a lot of stuff. And now I look at it, and I don't want to discount all that I did, but I'm going to discount a lot of it. And especially when I look at connection with myself and now connection with others, I am finding so much more value in the connection, in essence, the being, and not the doing. I'm blowing myself away at how little I have to do as opposed to what I used to, and how much more I feel like people are attracted to me. It's like a superpower.
Absolutely. I think it is a superpower to be, and again, I wouldn't want to discredit what you've accomplished and what you've done either. But I do think it's important that I A, slow myself down, and B, that I ask myself questions before I take actions.
Yes, or you're back to slowing down. Yeah. And just awareness, connected to self. And I just really like how you guys kind of scaffold into that with the solution focused brief therapy. We would, you got 4 hours because it's going to take that long to get through, but we'll do justice here. I want
Yeah.
to hit some highlights. You guys start off with, what is the acronym? It's, ADAPT. And the first one is autonomy. And I think your line there that I wrote down, autonomy is sacred. And this to me, I wrote down, my paraphrasing is, this is what makes you tick. You talked about the guy who gives people haircuts. You talked about, was it Adam or somebody no, it wasn't that. It was somebody in there who loves cars, but yeah, who was just like at the end of the rope, and you are a meth addict or something like that, and loves cars, but honoring that essence of who you
Bro,
are.
that is such a great example. Like, this guy loves cars, and his dad introduced him to cars, and then his dad passed away when he was a kid. And the pain of his dad passing away distracts him from who he actually is, and who he is a lover of cars. But when he gets distracted, his life goes on this track of bad choices, crystal methamphetamine, all of these things. But when you remind him, like, hey man, if I just brush all that shit away, like, what's in your core? And the core of him is, I'm someone who loves working on cars. Then be that. Because he viewed that as honoring his dad, which on some level he had been running from, because there was so much pain associated with the loss of his dad. But when you reconnect with that, I've often told people, I think therapy is nothing more than the ability to return a person to who they otherwise would have been had life not intervened in negative ways. Because no one grows up saying, when I grow up, I want to be addicted to crystal methamphetamine. Like, that's not what we say. His life was on one particular path until his dad passed away in a very tragic way. And now his life is rerouted. But my job is to help him get back to who he otherwise would have been before life intervened in negative ways.
Okay. If I gave out medals for the guests on my show, I would give you one right there. Seriously, Elliott, I have struggled for years with the message from people who I revere, who I honor, and I honor their messages, and I'm going to butt it. But there's a lot of them who have promote a concept of coming back to yourself, coming back to who you are, coming back. And when I hear that, I think coming back, I've never known who I was. I got nothing. I don't have anything to come back to. So when you started to say return to, I thought, oh, here's another one. You're going to return to your best self. Return. I'm thinking, me is now. I'm the meest me I've ever been. I don't want to return to anything. But when you said, it's almost an oxymoron, return to who you otherwise come to, whatever otherwise would have been. Thank you.
It's true. It's true. I think we think therapy is about like fixing depression or fixing that particular man so he's not addicted to drugs. And the truth is, what I think therapy does best is honoring you weren't intent to be a drug addict. So who were you if life hadn't intervened in a negative way? And his answer was immediate. I was a mechanic. I love cars.
Yeah. I just love it because when you look at the personality profile, so I grew up with a self-help dad. God love him. I did all the personality profiles starting when I was probably 5, and I looked at it, and at some point now you give me a personality profile, I don't know how to answer it because I've got way too much background there, and I know which direction it's going, and to answer it authentically is difficult. And I also wonder, I don't know who I would have been without all those influences. I mean, those are just, can any of us know exactly who we are? We can't be anything without an influence. It does influence us, but to now find what resonates, to understand, from an energetic standpoint or a spiritual standpoint, whichever way you want to go, of what does make me, back to your autonomy, what makes me tick? And I missed some of it, Elliott. I thought it's performing, It's being Superman. It's achievement. It's pursuit. And what I found, what fills me, man,
Right.
solitude. Solitude. I have 9
Do you
children.
really?
I have 9.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Yeah. That doesn't go with a guy who loves solitude and gets now. I love them. I don't regret having any of them, but it's a little question back there. And now today, though, I am patterning my life very differently to give myself that time when I can think and recharge and whatever. And I missed that. I never had a personality profile that said, "Hey, you should do this." It just kind of gave me those propensities, and man, I missed it.
But why that is so important, Kevin, like I'm so glad you would be willing to say that so publicly. If me and a bunch of friends were to call you and be like, "Hey, we're all going to happy hour, come with us," and you're like, no, I'm just going to sit at home. I'm just going to sit at home by myself and do some journaling. We were you're being antisocial. And the truth is like, no. This goes back to what I was saying earlier. Don't let the world distract you from who you actually are. I'm a person who recharges, grows, and benefits from being in solitude. So I'm not going to let your judgment or criticism change that about me. Like, that is who I am. I'm actually a very similar person. I appreciate being by myself. And when I was in graduate school, Texas Hold'em, the poker game, became like super popular. And all my friends that I went to college with, they would all be like, "Hey, we're going to so-and-so's house to play poker. Do you want to come? Like, meet me at Paul's house. We're going to play poker." And I was like, no. I'm really stressed out from graduate school. I don't want to when I'm really stressed and angst, I don't want to spend time around other people. I need to be around me. That helps me relax. That helps me get back centered. That helps me get back calm. And I lost friends over that because they took it personally. "Oh, you don't want to hang out with us anymore." And I was like, no, I just have to honor who I am. It ain't got nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with me and honoring who I am. And I hope as people hear this conversation, they will fall in love with who they are and realize how much shit we do for the purposes of meeting other people's expectations of who they think we are. If you can differentiate between those two things, your life will immediately get better.
Do you know the movie Yes Man? Jim Carrey. It's a movie called Yes Man. It's Jim Carrey. It's a comedy. And he's a guy who sits at home, doesn't do anything, and he's just vegging out on the TV all the time. And he goes to the seminar and they say yes to life. And so the whole movie is this funny depiction of him saying yes to everything and the pros and cons of that. I'm just sitting here thinking about it because I have learned to adopt no man.
Yeah.
To a degree. But case in point, we got to figure out how we tick. And I do, man, as I went down through every level, I went through the entire book and I felt like, okay, from a health and wellness standpoint, Elliott, I'm a follower of functional medicine. Functional medicine is saying, look, traditional medicine deals out here and works on the symptoms. And we have this culture in American healthcare, especially, of we just manage the symptoms. We don't get to the root and go, why are you taking these 10 bottles of pills? There's a reason down here. We can address a lot of those things. I felt like that's what you're doing. This is, I'm going to call it functional therapy. You're going piece by piece. Well, it's what I experienced. You're going piece by piece and going, let's get to the root issue. Who are you? How do you tick? Even with this first one, autonomy. Just yesterday, I did a show, Elliott, and got turned on to a guy, Robert Dilts. He created a psychologist, logical levels of change. And he's ultimately saying we deal down here with the symptomatic change, what the circumstances we want to change, the behaviors we think we need to do. This is what I do differently. And blah, blah, blah. We don't scaffold up get down to the root of identity. Who I believe I am, and I felt like that's what you hit right off the bat with autonomy. Who am I? What makes me tick? Core values. Yeah, you're my flagship for the moment at functional therapy. Let's get to the root causes. And so much out there is dealing with.
I know 100% tracks. I always think about if I were in Boston, Massachusetts at the airport, and my goal was to fly from Boston, Massachusetts to Los Angeles. If the pilot is 1 degree off, I will literally never hit my target. So I think what tracks so much about what you just said is most people, the problem isn't the crystal methamphetamine or the alcohol or the whatever. The problem is at some point in your story, you got 1 degree off. And in that 1 degree off, you're just never really hitting the target of who you actually want to be. You're just like circling Earth. But literally, if I had unlimited fuel and I got onto an airplane in Boston, Massachusetts at Logan Airport, and my goal was to get to Los Angeles at LAX, and the pilot was 1 degree off, I will literally circle Earth for infinity, forever. And I think that what most people are doing. And I cannot tell you how many times someone said to me, I never wanted to live here. I took a job in Texas and now I'm 40 years old and I'm like, why am I here? I saw a client once and they were from Colorado. And I don't remember what city or what area of Colorado, but Colorado is like super beautiful, especially the northern part of the state. Like it's a beautiful place to live. And this couple, the woman got a job. She got transferred from wherever they were in Colorado to the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. A lot of companies, like Dallas-Fort Worth has the most Fortune 500 companies in the country because it's centrally located, blah, blah, blah. So she worked for one of these big companies and they transferred her to Dallas. Well, the husband's a good, supportive guy. He was like, sure, I'll move to Dallas with you. Within a year, she comes to therapy with him saying, I no longer recognize my husband. He is irritable. He is short with me and the kids. He's drinking. Like she's just listing all these behaviors, and they were married for 10 years. And she was like, in Colorado, he was none of these things. And I asked the husband, I said, is this true? And he said, yeah, I guess so. And I said, can you tell me what you used to do for fun in Colorado? He was like, I used to go fly fishing. I would go hiking. In the winter, I'd go ice fishing. He had this like long list of things that he would do that in Texas, you just can't do. Like in Texas, you can't hike. About 8 months out of the year, the heat is literally dangerous to go out and hike. There are no trails. There are literally no lakes for him to go fly fishing. And like he had this realization that I over-sacrificed in moving to Texas. I didn't know I was doing it at the time, but I gave up really core, valuable pieces of me to the point where it changed who I was. And that's an example of like, you just kind of move the target 1 degree, man. That's all it takes. Well, that couple, the wife hears this and realizes like, no, he realizes I over-sacrificed. She realized I asked him to over-sacrifice. So they moved back to Colorado. And within a year, she emails me and says, he's back to normal. Because he's now the version of himself that he ultimately and has always wanted to be. And I think that that's really important, that we know our values enough that we can be like, hey, I can't move to Texas because I will no longer be able to be the person who goes fly fishing every weekend. I'll no longer be able to be the person who looks for a new trail and goes hiking all the time. I'll no longer be able to be the person that I want to be. And in doing so, they moved back. Luckily, her job let her move back to Colorado, but keep her promotion. And he's back to being the version of him that he wants to be. That's life. You got to know who you are so you don't give it up.
Yeah, that concept's acute to me, Elliott. And what you're doing feels like you're helping us understand who we are at a deeper degree. Again, I thought that I did, but what you just depicted, that was me in 2020. And I realized that I had taken a short, wrong trajectory, and I found myself over here. I remember the day, I remember the time, I remember where I was, I remember what I was wearing, and I was bitter. And I realized, what the hell happened? This is not what I want. How did I get here? And that took a long time to unfold. I mean, you talked about knowing who you are and the thriving. Well, like that guy, can he be him in Dallas? Maybe, but not the thriving him. So what level of us do we want?
That's absolutely right. Like you have to figure out, like I'm someone, I've recently discovered a hobby, and I say recently, I mean like in the last few years. I like archery. So if I'm going to move somewhere, one of the things I got to look for is like, do you have an archery range? I don't really hunt, I wouldn't say, but I like to go to archery ranges and shoot. I have several compound bows, and I like to shoot my compound bows. If if I were to like get in a relationship with someone who's like, you have to put your bows in storage, I got to immediately know like that person's not for me. I don't care how beautiful she is, and I don't care how funny she is. I don't care how much I like her cooking or all those other things. I know that archery is important to me. I get outside. It's a thing I do in solitude, and it's something that matters to me. And it's beyond just fun. It helps me be the version of me I want to be. Most people give up those things because they're not aware of what they are.
Okay, here's a question for you. Here's a relationship question. I was going to say marriage, but relationship, however an intimate relationship. Do you advocate that there can be differences, whatever, but that you should be with somebody who you share
Yes.
core values, or not, or maybe it's a spectrum? Because if we say a core value is like, for me, outdoor athletics and stuff, but I really like to do it by myself. So do I need to be with somebody who has that same core value? I don't know, because I really don't want them coming with me. But, core values have the same, or they just have to allow within the relationship.
I think both
for those to be
like,
expressed.
For example,
okay.
If I have so let's say I have a core value about like I like to be outside by myself, and my partner has a core value, she likes to be outside as well. If I say to her, I'm going to go on a weekend hike by myself, because she shares that value, she understands how important it is that I do it. So if she doesn't understand and she says, oh, I'll come with you. And I say, no, I really need to do this. I need this weekend to be just me by myself, camping under the stars, hiking on my own. I'll be back on Sunday night. If she doesn't understand that value, she'll take it personally and feel rejected. So I think both. I've got to have somebody who shares that value, so much so that she understands when I make a request within that value system. Because if she doesn't share that value, she's very likely to take it personally and feel rejected.
Yeah. I'm going to probably in the intro for this show, I'm going to say, guys, you're getting a teaser. I think this is a foundational aspect, but I love your methodologies. And again, I went through everything, and I'll talk about some of that in the intro, but some of this, it's the second part of the book, the diamond process that you guys have. And, that first one, desired success, again, coming back to what you want. And I'll admit, my own book, which I don't seem to have a copy of next to me, but What Drives You, I wrote that thing out of a desire for my kids to know what they want and to dig down into knowing why they really want that. And really a lot of effort for the book was to give people permission to step back out of the cultural shoulds or the family shoulds, the whatever, and have permission to understand what it is we really want. I feel, now I'll ask you, does it feel like that is one of the paramount obstacles for people these days is allowing themselves to even not only understand, figure out what they want, but to be free to accept that if it doesn't fit within.
I think that's 1,000% true. I'll say the single most important thing you can do, only because I can't think of anything that surpasses it in this moment. But the single most important thing you can do is define what success is for you and then stick to it. The most miserable people I know are the people who succumbed to the pressure of someone else's idea of success. For example, I have a friend, and growing up, she said, I never wanted children, but society tells her, you got to get a husband and you got to get married, and then you got to have kids. And she did exactly that. She said, Elliott, basically she said, I wanted to be like you. I've been in a position where I've been able to apply a lot of my energy to building my business and making a difference in the field of psychotherapy because that was important to me. She was on that path and then got pressured by society and her parents, like, a single unwedded woman is odd, so you need to get married, you need to have kids. And she would call me crying in her 40s, like, I hate my life. And she had healthy kids that were like good, reasonable, healthy kids. But she's like, this is not the life I dreamt about when I was a kid. And ultimately, she decided to leave that husband. And she decided to, like, as the kids got older and less dependent on her as a mom, she went back to school to work on an advanced degree and start her own therapy practice and like reclaiming her own identity. But the most unhappy people I know are the people who let someone else dictate to them what success looks like. And then they built a life based upon someone else's ideals. You can't do that, man. You've got to really hone in on what you view as success and how you go about creating it.
Well, I resonate some with that. Not that I regret being a dad to 100 children, but man, I never quit. That wasn't even somebody else's should. I don't know. It wasn't religious. It wasn't whatever. We were just running and gunning and overdoing everything. And now realizing that, well, I'm not going to get rid of my kids. I'm not going to stop being a father, but it has changed who I be with them. And I will say, not to just justify it, but I do so much less as a dad, but I be so much more. And I think my kids' love for me has increased so much. I think it's much more beneficial for them to see happy,
That's absolutely
healthy,
true.
fulfilled.
And I can't connect with you unless you're being your authentic self. Like, even if in your authenticity, you're doing something that I don't like, I can't connect with you unless you're being authentic.
Man, Elliott, thanks.
I love it, man. Kevin, I'd love to come
back. There's so much here, and I am an advocate of this. I'm so grateful to have been exposed to solution-focused brief therapy, but your flavor of it and your spirit, and I experience great energy and a great heart. And thank you for doing what you did to what you do, but bringing the book here. I am grateful to continue learning. I'll keep studying this. I'll take advantage of knowing you and leverage you and reach out. And I'm also honored to share it with other folks, because I think therapy feels like we're at an all-time high of people getting therapy. I don't know if we're at an all-time high of people recovering and healing. So thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you.
No problem, man. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your energy and your honest spirit, and thank you for going through the book. And I hope it makes a difference in your life and the lives of the people that you touch. Thanks for having me, bro.
It is. Thank you, Elliott. Well, thanks again for joining us in this discussion. That again is Elliott Connie, Elliott. Elliott Connie. You can find him anywhere on social media. If you'll type that in, his website is elliottconnie.com. And you can even find an SFBT therapist if you go check him out there. Again, the book is Change Your Questions, Change Your Future, Overcome Challenges, and Create a New Vision for Your Life using the principles of solution-focused brief therapy. Thanks for being with me today. Here's to you and the evolving you.
Yeah.